Okay, so there's this massive disruption brewing, one that's flying almost completely under the radar, and it's heading straight for a huge part of vocational education. We're talking about beauty schools. And what's coming isn't just a minor tweak, it's about to reshape the entire industry from the ground up.
So get this. Some pretty serious economic modeling is predicting that as many as 75%, 3 out of every 4, for-profit beauty schools in the US could actually fail. This isn't just a guess, it's a direct forecast based on a major new rule that's about to kick in. And that brings us to the big question we're tackling here. What on earth happens when an educational model that's been around for decades suddenly becomes, well, obsolete? The stakes here are huge for the students who are left with debt, for the school owners staring down a total collapse, and honestly for taxpayers whose money is funding this whole system. Now, this didn't just pop up out of nowhere. This is actually the end result of new federal rules that were specifically designed to fix what a lot of people see as a deeply broken system. And it all comes to a head on July 1st, 2026. Here's the heart of the issue. For decades, the business model for a ton of these for-profit schools hasn't really been about making sure students succeed. It's been about one thing: capturing as much federal student aid as possible, often from students who are in the most vulnerable positions. And this is the new rule that changes the entire game. It's called the Earnings Premium Test, and it's actually pretty simple. It just asks one basic question. Are your graduates actually making more money than someone who only finished high school in your state? If the answer is no, then the government says the program just isn't worth the investment, and boom, the federal money gets shut off. So to really get why this rule is such a massive threat, you just have to look at the cost. A typical 1,500-hour cosmetology program at one of the big for-profit chains, it can easily run you over $20,000, and almost all of that is paid for with federal student loans. Now check out this number and compare it. The tuition is over 20 grand, but the median annual salary for a graduate a few years later is often only around $18,000. That's frequently less than what a typical high school grad makes. You see the problem, right? That's the debt trap, right there in black and white. So yeah, that huge imbalance, that's the whole issue. The old model sticks students with a mountain of debt that they realistically can't pay back with the kind of money they're likely to earn. Under these new rules, that's not just a moral issue anymore. It's a fatal flaw in the business plan. You can pretty much map out how this whole thing will collapse. It's like a domino effect. So, in July 2027, the first schools fail the test and have to start warning potential students. By October, surprise, surprise, enrollment plummets. Just a few months later, they can't make rent. Within 2 years, they lose all access to federal aid, and the whole school is forced to liquidate. It's a predictable downward spiral. And the potential damage here is just staggering. The models show 2 main scenarios. Even the moderate one projects that about half of all these schools will shut their doors. But the aggressive scenario, which is the one that happens if the government really sticks to its guns, predicts that a whopping 65 to 75% of schools will go under. Okay, so we've just walked through the doomsday scenario. The path from a failed test to total collapse seems pretty clear. But does it have to be that way? Is there another option? Can a school actually be designed to survive this thing? Let's take a look at a potential blueprint.
It really all boils down to 2 totally different philosophies. The old way was all about minimum compliance, doing just enough to not get shut down, while hiding the real numbers behind a lot of marketing fluff. The new, resilient model, though, is built on the exact opposite: radical transparency, making everything public and actually using that compliance as a strength. And this chart really breaks down the differences for us, using a real-world case study, the Louisville Beauty Academy, or LBA. See, the old model's reliance on Title IV funds, that's the federal student aid money, is super high, like 85 to 90%. LBA, on the other hand, strategically avoids it. The old model is opaque. LBA is radically transparent. And that fundamental shift makes them pretty much immune to this crisis. So what's their secret sauce? Well, LBA's model is built on a few really smart strategies. First, they barely touch federal aid. Second, they treat going above and beyond on compliance as a good thing, a brand asset. They even use AI and fingerprint tech for perfect record keeping. And maybe most importantly, they see their students as future entrepreneurs, not just people to sign up for loans. But this goes way deeper than just a different teaching style. To really survive this crisis, schools have to completely rethink their entire financial and operational structure.
And it starts with the most basic thing, the buildings they're in. See, the old way of doing things has this fatal flaw built right in. Step 1, get as much federal aid as you possibly can. Step 2, use that money to pay for these really expensive, specialized salon leases. Step 3, just hope. Hope that you can keep enough new students coming in the door to cover those massive fixed costs. It's a total house of cards. The second enrollment dips, the whole thing comes crashing down. So what does a resilient school's balance sheet actually look like? Well, check this out. Instead of being 100% dependent on leases, you own your own building. Instead of having over 85% of your revenue tied to federal aid that could disappear, you keep it under 20%. This creates much healthier profit margins, that's the NOI, and a way stronger ability to cover your debts, which is that DSCR number. Basically, you transform the school from a fragile business into a stable company that's backed by a real asset. And that is really the big idea here. You're shifting the school from a fragile service liability into a solid real estate-backed asset. That's how you build an institution that can weather any regulatory storm. It creates a completely new standard for what a trustworthy school even looks like.
So this all adds up to what we can call the new trust standard. It's defined by 4 key principles. You have financial independence from the government. You have radical transparency with everyone. Your number one focus is on how much your graduates actually earn, and the school itself operates like a stable, asset-backed company.
You know, there's a quote from the research that just nails it. The future of beauty education belongs to institutions that own their buildings, minimize federal dependence, and operate with radical transparency. The old way of doing business, it's over. From now on, survival is going to be all about ownership, independence, and honesty. Which leaves us with one last, really big question to think about. I mean, sure, this story is about beauty schools, but you see this dynamic playing out everywhere. Are we actually building our educational institutions to create real, lasting value for students? Or have we accidentally built a system that's just gotten really, really good at capturing government subsidies?